Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. I was just busy taking this quiz about historically accurate practice swords. Let me read you some of the questions. Do you ever find yourself in dire need of immediate self defense? Yes. Do you ever find yourself challenged to a friendly duel only to find yourself woefully unprepared? Yes. Do you ever find yourself longing for a sense of adventure and wonderment in your daily life? Yes, I do. If you answered yes to any of these questions, we have the solution for you. Historically accurate practice swords. Historically accurate practice swords are designed to be an accurate replica and mimic the act of an actual sword from history. These swords are used to simulate historical sword fighting by replicating the weight and size of these swords. Practice swords can come in handy for a variety of situations. Today, we're going to show you all of the techniques and cool ways you can use these swords, as well as how they'll definitely improve your life and impress your friends.
Now that we've gotten your attention, let's go over some of the basics of sword fighting and the different positions and the anatomy of the sword that you can use to kick people's butts. First, let's go over the basic anatomy of a sword. I'll be using a long sword, two-handed long sword, as it's the most universally recognized type of sword. Now, on the long sword, there are some basic parts that you need to know. The half of the blade that is normally the closest to your opponent is called the weak. It's the easiest to deflect and also probably not what you want to try and block and attack with. The part that you actually do want to block and attack with is the strong. The strong of your blade is, of course, the area closest to you and has the most power behind it for when you want to stop another opponent's weapon. Now, after the strong of the blade, there's the guard. This is a cross guard. The guard, of course, protects your hands and adds for another layer of stopping power when other people are striking at you with their weapons. And of course, there's the handle and then the pommel, which not only keeps the components of the handle put together, but also serves as a counterbalance. Now, in two-handed longswords, you want to keep one hand on the pommel and one hand close to the guard so that you're able to easily control where the sword is going. Now, another part of the sword, there's the false edge and the true edge. The false edge is the edge that you swing and hit your opponent with. The true edge is what you do the backswing with. It's not as common and it's very easy to deflect, so be careful when using the false edge and try to use the true edge as much as possible if you have an opening. Now let's visit the anatomy of a cutlass, or a short sword. Not exactly a short sword, this is actually a pretty normal length sword. The cutlass has a couple of extra parts, or even just different parts. Now with the cutlass, the pommel is significantly smaller and it has a basket guard instead of a cross guard. A basket guard allows for you to wield with one hand and also have a decent amount of protection for your fingers. It also makes it so that if your blade is engaged, you can swing at your opponent's face with the basket guard and possibly knock a couple teeth out, which is always a bonus. Now, a sword like this still has a weak and a strong, however its false edge is always the same edge as there's no real way to pick it up the other way. It doesn't work. The true edge is also, again, much easier to keep track of. Now the weight of a sword this size is more focused towards the front, so that when you swing, the centrifugal force pulls it forward more. It's a little bit harder to control, but if you get the fluidity of the moves right, you can do some real damage. Now, unless you're using a two-handed weapon, you're probably going to have one hand open. Other people like to supplement their main weapon with something like a shield or a dagger. Other people use guns, which is arguably more effective than a sword. But let's talk today about the dagger and the buckler. First, let's go over the buckler. The buckler is commonly supplemented with either a sword or even just a dagger. Now the buckler is made to protect the hand if you don't have a basket guard or any other kind of guard. It also can be used to beat away your opponent's sword and is basically just a guard for your sword that can move away from it. It's very useful if you just need to block your opponent, honestly. It can also be used to parry your opponent and throw them off balance so that you can go in for it. One method that I find really funny is that historically, some people have fought with a dagger and a buckler, and what they simply do is they take the dagger, they put it under their thumb, and then they grab the opponent's sword and take it from them. This seems like an odd way to go about it, but it's effective.
Hi, welcome back. You met Katie, who introduced you to swords in general, and then you met Adrian, who taught you a little bit about the history and gave you a few demonstrations on swords. Now, if you're not already sold on fake swords, and not getting in your car, running red lights to buy one, I'm going to give you 24 reasons why you should buy yourself a fake sword. Number 1, you can learn more about swords in general, and more about the history of swords. Number 2, it'll give you a better perspective on swords themselves. Number 3, it can teach you some self-defense moves. I know for a fact that if a criminal was coming up to you and you had a sword, they would certainly probably not want to mess with you. Number 4, it will make you a more scholarly person in general. Knowledge is power, and any kind of knowledge is always useful. Number 5, it can be used for cosplay. Most cosplays include some kind of prop, and most commonly the sword, so this sword will be useful to you. Number 6, it can expose you to different cultures. There's all different kinds of sword fighting, such as Spanish, Japanese, and German, as you saw in the demonstrations. Number 7, it can be used for sport or for recreational time. Number 8, it can be used for LARPing or D&D sessions. You can use these swords in LARPing because in LARPing you obviously want some kind of weapon to defend yourself against the magical imaginary forces. Number 9, it can be used for battle play or battle play games. Number 10, it can be used for training and or fitness. Who needs kickboxing when you've got a sword, right? Number 11, it can show you a whole new community of people, of very cool people, like me. 12, it can be used for recreational time. Number 13, it can be used to defeat your nemesis when necessary. Number 14, it can be used for decoration. Who needs Christmas lights when you've got your very own sword? Number 15, it can be used as a festive decoration. Who needs lights and garland when you've got a sword? Number 16, you can defeat your friends in battle in case that would ever come up. Number 17, you can dub your pets knights. And number 18, you can dub your pets, your friends, or your family as knights, or potentially as grand wizards. And number 19, you can make peace with your enemy. You can lay your sword by their feet, and they will know that you mean no harm and will not attack you. Number 20, you can play video games. But don't get too excited, because then you'll probably break your computer. But they're still useful. Number 21, you can take really cool selfies with your fake sword. Number 20, it can be used as a conversation piece. I know carrying around a sword will certainly make people want to come talk to you and wonder why you're carrying a fake sword. So, you should definitely invest in one. And number 23, it can be used for cooking. Things like chopping, stirring, anything you can think of. And finally, number 24, it can be used for throwing, which is my personal favorite. And finally, I'd like to give you a thank you for sitting and listening to us talk about fake swords. I would like to thank Adrian for her wonderful demonstration. I would like to thank Katie for introducing us to fake swords in general. And, well, I would like to thank you for staying with us and taking the time to appreciate and understand fake swords. And hopefully, perhaps, in the very near future, you'll consider investing and or buying a fake sword. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a good day or night, whatever time it is where you are. And I very much hope you consider buying a fake sword.
Thank you for listening to our infomercial, and I hope you consider buying yourself a historically accurate practice sword.